Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and thanks for stopping by. Our dedicated team will guide you through with the latest updates and theories at Starbase, Texas. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon for future streams.
G'day world, from all around the world. My name's Stephanie B and welcome to episode 119 of Starship Weekly live stream. Today I've got a couple of commentators with me. We've got BJ. How you going today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Stephanie, and welcome everyone to this week's show. Had an exciting week this on Thursday, and lots of things to cover regarding that, and got some images also of the other sites.
And on questions and donations and general comment, we've got Lawrence as well. How you going, Lawrence?
I'm doing good. Happy to be here on this post-launch show.
Okay, and with that, we might jump straight into the launch. Okay, so Thursday, we're in great anticipation. We waited for the launch to happen, and then it all happened without a 40-second hold, and I'll leave it to BJ now.
Yeah, so just like we had on the previous shows, or previous flights, I should say, didn't need that hold that we saw on the first flight, and things got right off to a start. And if we start going from there, yeah, we saw liftoff right there. Looked like we had a successful 33 engine light. We had that one go out just after liftoff. Things went real well. Normal ascent, we got all the way up to the point of hot staging. We got a nice view of the grid fins shifting, getting ready. Ship 29 lit all 6 just as we expected, and booster 11 would turn around, start its boost back burn. All 13 engines started great. Here we get a chance to see that upward shot as the hot stage ring floated away. Looked like we had a nice successful jettison on that first attempt of that. Everything continued nominally, it seemed, throughout all the rest of the booster flight. Here we got a nice 3-shot there, getting some views of the grid fins as well as the trail as the booster was coming in for its soft landing. And then here, yeah, we see the cloud layers come in here, and then 12 of the 13 Raptors relit for the landing burn. We did see a little bit of debris there flying away. Not sure if that was that 12th engine eating itself. And then the 3 centers continued and brought us to a soft splashdown. We'll come back to that here in a moment with the new footage, but here we see Ship 29 continuing on towards the Indian Ocean. Again, we saw the intermittent signals as we got there, but here at around the 36 or 37 minute mark, we got pretty good images all the way to the end with a few things there. Great shots showing the attitude was nice and stable this time around. We didn't see the spinning and rolling that we saw during Flight 3, which was great to see. Right about here is when we started to see some evidence of some peak heating along some of the tiles on those trailing edge of the aft or the forward flaps, and then the leading edge there on the aft flap. So we really got a chance to see a few of those things. Things seem to be going real well at this point. Great views of the plasma. That rear-facing one was really cool because it almost looked like we were stationary because nothing seemed to be moving in the video footages. And then as we continue on farther into there, we start getting into those peak heating moments where things started to get a little bit more intense. Here we see a lot of sparks flying, probably the heat tiles not holding too well. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see how things were, but the way things progressed here momentarily, we're going to see how the heat tiles seem to not stand up to the re-entry forces. Right about here, we start seeing the front.
Those colors, though, there were so many colors. It was amazing.
Yeah, be curious to see. But yeah, the sparks come in all the different shades where it was really, really cool to see, other than what was probably causing it wasn't so cool. Here we see on the aft flap there, we think that probably some of that plasma got into the hinge of that aft flap and started coming out the backside. And then that was about when we lost all views to the back, and then they switched us to this forward flap where we started to really see the plasma eat away at the structures. And it happens really fast. I think all of us were kind of on the edge of the seat watching to see what was going to happen, because here in a couple minutes or so, right there, it really goes south. And we start seeing those internal stringers and a lot of damage being had along that backmost hinge point.
We were so on the edge of our seats. It was so much fun watching this launch.
Yeah, I think from here all the way till splashdown, none of us were sure whether we were going to see it actually land. Especially when here in a few moments we start to really lose our views as the debris kind of covers the lens of that camera, and then we start getting some every time the signal went away, I feel like we were all jumping thinking that we lost it for good, but the telemetry still was kind of going. But here we get towards the very end of the flight. We can just barely make out some images here of that forward flap. A lot of downward telemetry of the nose, thinking we were going to be done. And here all of a sudden, they call out some of the landing burn. We never see it in the graphic, actually, that the engine's lit, but we get that vertical views from the telemetry showing that it was tail down, and then we kind of see the splash down, and towards right at the end, you can just see where it maybe belly flops before the signal cuts out. As we go in here, we showed a nice little augmented animation from the space engineer. We have an updated version of this, actually, that is more animation and doesn't use that onboard footage, and really shows what that damage may have looked like and how the flap really just started falling away from its hinge points.
How did that even operate? I mean, like, to actually deploy the way it did and landing, I'm not sure whether it was actually did anything for flight. It was just amazing that it actually managed to get vertical, the whole ship.
Yeah, I feel like that forward hinge point survived just long enough that we could see it moving and that the actuator could function it. And I think it was right at the very end, almost as if it would probably after it was already touched the water. I think when that front hinge went, maybe even just the forces of not so soft landing on the water might have even broke it free.
Yeah, I
But
think even this animation actually shows that. I think it's
yeah, I do. I think it's there. Even I'd have to go back and really examine the footage again. I don't have a firm remembrance of exactly in the moment where it was, but I really do feel like it was actually after the first contact with the ocean that it actually broke free. So it hung on just long enough to make it.
big shout out to the space engineer for this animation. It's really nice.
Absolutely. But yeah, so it seems like Flight 4 went really, really well. And just an hour or so ago, we had got a really good new view of the booster landing. SpaceX released this. I'm sure most of you have all seen it already. But we got a buoy camera. It looked like maybe a 360 camera based off of some of the artifacts we're seeing. But even before the landing burn was initiated, we got footage of it coming through the clouds.
Big fire there now. Because it's a sustained fire, it's more than likely a propellant leak, I think, is the going theory there.
Yeah, I would imagine that it's hard to tell the orientation that maybe that 13th engine that didn't relight, maybe propellants were still flowing through it. I would have maybe thought that that could have been shut down to prevent it, but um, it could be related, maybe not.
And even though there was an engine failure this time, at least the explosions, whatever parts we saw fly past, was all contained enough that they still managed to light the rest of the landing engines and actually get the booster to get rid of all its vertical velocity fairly well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those pieces were probably from some of those outer shields. If that one engine had an issue, into a point where it contained all that stuff away from the engines that were still working, and kind of did the job of what all that shielding inside of there is meant to do.
Just another sort of interesting bit of info. A plane out of Australia went out there and had a little look. So not sure whether we're going to get some photos. This is Australian mining company's trijet. There it is. Now that's all public info, so there's no showing that.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see. It seems a craft like that seems interesting to send out there, but it certainly looked like it was loitering in the vicinity of a potential landing. So it would be real interesting to see if anything comes of that. I know it was still pretty much in the dark of night before dawn, so I don't know how much would have been really seen of the ship landing, anyways.
Someone in the chat saying she's running a bit rich in that footage of the landing. It does seem a bit like there's excess fuel. It's not running very. The colour's quite orange.
Yeah, and I even heard some comments even that the initial ascent seemed like it might have been a little fuel rich as well. That is definitely not within my knowledge base, so that's just based off of what I've heard.
Well, I mean, fuel rich is a sort of a safer operation mode rather than oxygen rich. So, but they may have done that on purpose.
Yeah, certainly could very well be.
So everyone in chat, don't forget you can use exclamation mark and questions. Was there any questions about the actual launch for now, Lawrence?
I have it. I believe that has to do with Star Factory. When we get there.
No worries, thanks. Okay, well, with that, we might go on with the launch site and see how that fared. So our initial views, it seems to have fared well. Now, we didn't notice in the show and tell that the RGB team actually managed to capture the clamps closing. I haven't actually seen that myself yet. Yeah, there they are. They're closed now. So that's a good indication that things aren't too damaged.
Yeah, I'd seen a few different a few people had posted different screenshots. There's actually, I think, a couple of them where some clamps are out and some are retracted. So we were definitely flying right as they were starting to reset things to start looking at get some inspections, post-flight inspections and such.
So mostly the whole launch site survived quite well. I think there's a tiny bit of damage over in the tanks here, just a bit of superficial coverings, and of course the oxygen tanks, boy, they got hammered. It's a really good indication of how well the perlite helped those tanks, and sort of just how kind of flimsy those tanks, the shells anyway, really are.
Yeah, I think we thought maybe that just the leg shadowing of some of the forces were doing it, but I think this before and after really shows that the perlite was giving a lot of structure to that void between the inner and outer shells and tank.
And yeah, mostly otherwise, well, it's obviously charred again. It always gets charred, doesn't it? It gets quite barbecued. I mean, there's more than likely going to be damage in here, or maybe. I think there's a ground photo showing that the actual QD plate got a little bit charred. So hopefully this new door, though, we'll see in the next week or so whether they take the flex hoses out again or not. The SQD leaned over, I guess, that actuator. Whether it's damaged or it just didn't retract properly or it overextended or over-retracted, I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, it really looks very similar to how it was on Flight 3 with just some very minor stuff. My personal feeling is I feel like the retraction has the ability to overextend, and then also those two arms that kind of position the front part. The way they attach is almost like this trapezoidal shape that the way that they can interact with each other, it doesn't really keep that QD perfectly flat guaranteed. So I think there's some design deficiencies in there, which I think is pretty obvious that the fact that it doesn't return to a proper position every time would suggest that as well.
Now on the launch, so we didn't cover on the launch, we didn't do an episode either, that the chopsticks closed after the launch. Now I've also heard in chat somewhere that it might have occurred at the same time the booster was actually doing its landing burn. At that exact time, the chopsticks were in sync doing what the chopsticks are supposed to do on a catch. Did you hear that, BJ?
I did, and actually was when I heard that, I went back and looked at it, and the motion of the sticks definitely initiated at the time of landing, not within a few seconds. Now, I would say it's not a simulated catch because they moved very slowly. I mean, it was multiple minutes that it took for them to come to the closed position, but it did appear that they initiated a move probably right about when they needed to for a catch.
Yeah, and I'll add on that right before they moved, they added another deluge spray.
Yeah, I had seen some of that evidence that the relief valves on the weirs had kind of engaged there. I don't know that anyone got really good clear shots of it actually happening. Just some of the other evidence that would suggest that it happened.
Yeah, just came. So
actually did get some good shots of it.
Okay, so yeah, it's a good thing that mostly the site seems quite unscathed. Just waiting on that. Here we go, we've got it, I think. Not quite, it's still coming down, hang on. That might have been corrupted yet, hang on.
But yeah, I mean, really, to just cap that, I mean, the damage that we've seen is very superficial. I mean, Obviously, the tank shells we knew were going away. Those other claddings have been a problem the last couple in terms of some of them on the hippos and things like that. We did notice that there was one small hole of cladding on the roof of the tower that seemed to rip away. We didn't see any pieces flying, so perhaps it was just some pressure waves that caused that as well, but very superficial.
I do have one question regarding the launch pad, and it is why is it? This comes from Peter Thompson asking, why is it all golden under the OLM?
That is a very good question. I would imagine that there's some science in there in terms of the heat that it's seeing, as well as just soot. I mean, that's what I was my presumption is that it's just some discoloration from the heat cycles. Um, I'm sure there's some people who would know better than what happens there from a reaction between it all. But it is I think there's also a few of it. A little bit might also just be the way the reflection is happening through from the camera and sun and things like that.
Agreed.
Yeah, also some people were saying it may have something to do with the reflection of the light of the sun. I mean, there is a bit of a sepia tone all over the place, but just looking around at different angles, it seems to be in all the angles. There seems to be the same sort of tint, especially that one. See, because that one's particularly like this. And where's the sun? So the sun is over that way. So it's almost like the sun's reflecting on it. But this one here, you can actually see the hexagons as well.
Yeah, you can really see the weld marks where all the different pieces were put together, and then obviously all of the circles around the ring where we can see where the actual water is coming out, and that water is really protecting that particular portion of the plate from getting the soot, especially those inner pieces. You can really see the soot.
Oh, here's another animation. Wow. Yeah, I like the timing. That timing looks good so it did manage to do the flip, and perhaps part of the aerodynamic forces even of the actual doing the flip may have broken that, finally let that front hinge loose. Because it seemed to be actuating fine. Like it did all that fine, and then I think we noticed after that, we noticed some movement, afterwards. So it was after it actually finished the flip maneuver. Fantastic. So there we're seeing some overlays of the actual flight footage in amongst that render.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it, and really to be able to confirm that what we're seeing in the animations, when we kind of are able to strip all that debris off the lens and really kind of imagine what we would have seen with a clear image.
That camera did such a good job. Nonetheless, it was amazing. I mean, the flap, everything, the whole ship, everything was just so amazing on that flight. I couldn't sleep for hours after that. Okay, well, we'll move off from the launch. That was, very exciting launch, and it ticked some boxes. And now I suppose we can keep talking about some more of the launching. I've sort of been thinking that people asking about payloads, whether they're going to do Starlinks or when they're going to go orbital. And I don't think version 1 will go orbital. It may do a dummy Starlink just to see if the mechanism works. But I think version 2 is going to do more of the orbital stuff. Personally, I think version 1's job is just to actually do the flight, to make sure they can take off and land, and perhaps do a booster catch over the next few flights. But I can't see the ship doing much more. I think for the ship side of it, version 1 was mostly about getting data, and which they got a lot of data this time, which they got some data in the last few flights, but this flight they got a whole lot of data. And so we might not see any more sort of orbital stuff until version 2.
Yeah, I seem to agree with that. I think these last three V1 ships really is all about being almost a test bed to give the booster what it needs to be able to perfect that return and the catch and things like that, so that when the V2s come out and we start seeing like tanker versions and stuff, because eventually they're going to have to start working on all those in-flight transfer demos and stuff, and they're going to want to be able to reuse boosters and not have to build one for all of those tests. We know that the ships are going to be disposable for quite a while yet. So I think that development with these V1 ships is, and getting the booster where it needs to be, is the important part.
Yeah, I can't believe they pulled off the flip maneuver for the ship. That was amazing. Okay, well, let's go around the rest of the site then. They're already starting to fill up. I think we mentioned in the script that they may have even been pre-ordered in case there was a hold and a recycle, but they're definitely here very quickly.
Yeah, every flight we've pretty much seen tankers arriving within the hours after is of the road opening back up. So I think it's all about, if they ended up having to scrub, you got to have that all prearranged and they're already going to be en route.
Agreed. Okay, I think I saw them doing some concrete. Yeah, they've been digging up concrete, I think, haven't they?
Yeah, well, they dug up the concrete. I'm not sure if they completed it before launch or not, but the CFA drill rig actually is over here, and you can actually see a couple of them. I think in here the piles have already been started in those two pads for the tank expansion. On the left one there, I think you can see two for sure. But they spent, I think, 2, maybe even 3 days prior to flight. That rig was over here working on these two pads.
And there's a tank at Port Brownsville. So there's a tank from Port Brownsville has arrived. Went past Massey's. We thought it might have been a Massey's oxygen tank, but it looks like it's going to be one of these tanks for this position.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was going to be for the one spot that was ready to receive a tank nearly, but I think the construction work over at Massey's still doesn't really let them get it into final place yet. From what I've heard, I believe it's actually was maybe staged over in Sanchez. However, I have not personally seen any photographic evidence of that just yet.
Yeah,
Cool.
I have seen a photo, and it was staged near the tower sections.
Nice, thanks, Lawrence. I was going to say, a little bit of a snippet from the commentary on the launch is that they are looking like they're going to share the tank farms with launch pad A and B. That was a bit of a big Easter egg for us.
Yeah, it was definitely a nice confirmation. I think that theory had been kind of floating around for a while, for the possibility. Personally, I saw some of the connections, while the piping connections didn't really necessarily confirm anything. I felt like the way that they capped off some of those main lines gave that potential to be confirmed.
Yeah, I was always saying no about that, but looks like I've been proven wrong again.
Yeah, I had speculated, since we heard about the new tower coming and how fast they wanted to get it up, that they would share the farm. So it was definitely a surprise that they confirmed that during the launch.
So the next question, I guess, to speculate is whether they're going to have another set of pumps and hippos over here, or are they going to, because that'd be a lot easier just to bring the craft fluids over here and condition them over here rather than tapping into these lines under here and somehow bringing them across.
Yeah, that seems to make the most sense to me. The interesting part to me would have been, if that was the case, I would have thought maybe we'd see some cutoff valves somewhere between the tank farm and the current subcoolers, just as a way to say, okay, we're going to pull it one way or the other. Obviously, that could be added in at some point. But it's certainly, as far as pipe lengths and stuff, and pump ratings and such, it probably makes more sense to have their own their own systems on that side of the site.
I would agree with that.
I think someone was saying that at Kennedy, some of the super chilled lines are that long, so I don't know that it's too far. It just seems to be a lot easier to have a second set of pumps, but we'll see in the future. We'll see about that soon enough.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think a lot of the some of the tank farm areas out at like 39A definitely have those longer lines. So I don't think it's necessarily impossible for sure. I think it's a possibility. It could go either way. We'll have to wait and see.
Absolutely.
All right, I do have one question for about the tank farm right now, and this is from Nathaniel Sullivan. And with the assumption of the tank farm being used for both towers, do you think they'll need more power to keep the cryogenics cool to get the area of the second tower?
Well, we know they've got the mains power here. There's plenty of power here at the launch site now. We've got these new mains coming all the way in from Brownsville. That's what I mean about power. There's plenty of power.
Yeah, the power part of that question is a little curious. I mean, the fact that the cooling action is done with the liquid nitrogen, it's not like we have electric coolers or something like that. So it's just the longer line may require more nitrogen because we'll use more of it in the process of cooling down longer lines. Um, so I think that could maybe be the base of the question.
Oh, yeah, gotcha. Okay, let's move on to orbital pad B. So some good developments with embeds and the whole Rio work and everything. There's quite a few developments. I'll let you explain all this stuff, BJ.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely this week really gave us all some confirmation of orientation, things like that. We started really seeing that we knew this was where the tower was going to go, but now with the embeds in there, we can see now that the OLM is definitely going to face to the south. The way the embeds are going, and we've actually seen the first leg arrive for it, even sitting there towards the bottom of the foundation work. Here's a great labeled in terms of how the winches are going to go on there, and showing the OLM being on that one corner. We have now seen, since the flyover, a second leg did arrive on site this morning, actually. We believe it to be the east leg, so in this image it will be the left-hand corner. We've seen the corner leg for the tower foundation also came in. And then we've seen a couple of other miscellaneous pieces. This T-piece here that we saw in the flyover, as well as there's another panel that is over by the tank farm in our flyover images. It has since arrived here at the Pad B area. But that T-piece, as well as this element, we believe are parts of the two back-facing walls that face away from the OLM. We think that there's actually, the way the embeds sit, we believe there's going to be doorway entries, that they won't be fully enclosed on those two sides, similar to how we see that in the concrete structures of the first tower as well.
Yeah, a doorway here and a doorway here. A doorway here and a doorway back there. Sorry.
Yeah, correct. So we're going to see that open in there. We believe that those other elements are mostly for that, and that we haven't seen the panels. The other panels will be very similar, that will make up the solid walls that face the OLM itself.
So explain to me again why they're going to use these panels with the concrete and how that's going to work as a final product.
Yeah, so for those who have been watching, when we discussed the flame trench at Massey's in the past, essentially the stringer elements that we saw there, it seems like they're going to use that same similar technique here. Instead of having forms and pouring a concrete base like the first tower was, and then putting some metal cladding on it for protection, this next tower is actually going to look at, all the pieces are indicating that we're going to have a steel structure that then they're going to come back in and fill with concrete. We've seen it in that rendering right there. We actually saw it how that leg has all the crossbars within an inner and an outer plate. So they'll fill it back in with concrete after. So we'll get the benefits of the strength of the concrete and the steel, and then it'll all be integrated and made into one structure. And I think that's going to really help them keep everything much more firm. And we won't see any of the concrete spalding and things like that we saw on the base of the first tower.
And a similar thing happened at Kennedy. Sorry about the images. A similar thing happened at Kennedy, I think. Maybe not. I think these are Kennedy's.
Yeah, Kennedy. I wasn't paying close attention just because the views were so hard to see. But I'm pretty sure Kennedy, it was much more like Tower One, where they poured the concrete. I don't know that. Obviously, the structures are different along the back edges. There, we see concrete structures around the back of the tower to house the drawworks and things like that. Where the Tower One at Starbase, those extra structures were all steel structures added to the towers. So obviously they've kind of taken that, keeping it all as one assembly like 39A, but taking what they learned about the concrete endurance to the Raptor engines and putting a metal structure in there that will prevent them from having that the issues with the concrete on the exterior of the surfaces.
Yeah, I can just say that the one at KSC was just a concrete pour. They didn't have the steel plate shielding.
So this CFA as rig, this drilling rig has been doing some holes over here. We can't really see them now, can we?
Not a whole lot. We did see last week in the flyovers that there was one potential hole that was exposed with a pile that was curing in there. But yeah, just like everything else, it seems like we're gonna have to wait for them to just complete a little bit more of the work before we're gonna actually start seeing the placements.
And some work over here, which we think may be the deluge farm, because there's no tank farm over here. So we're gonna some of the rest of the work over here should have something to do with the deluge farm, I guess.
Yeah, the Wellpoint rig getting ready to dewater the hole, similar to what we had around the foundations. I guess we'll have to wait to see. It's hard to tell, but this area may have already had some pilings drilled into it before the rig went over to start working on the main tank farm. We know some drilling was done over on this side. It may be within that, or it may be next to it. But yeah, it seems like either deluge farm or some form of work, whether it may be even for subcoolers or something like that. It seems a little close for that, but we'll have to wait and see what's going to develop there.
And they've taken down more of the wall. They removed. Oh, sorry. Well, Duff. Sorry, Duff.
I was just going to say.
Go ahead.
Just going to say I agree, and that would mirror the deluge from.
Cool. Sorry, I stepped on you there. We're trying not to do that. So they've removed some more of the wall. I think we saw, was it this last week or the week before, all the signage got removed. Sort of very temporary sort of a thing for SpaceX, which is nothing new really, I guess, that they've done something temporary.
Yeah, I think I actually saw ground photos yesterday that they actually had put a vertical cut halfway in the wall that is currently visible. That it looks like another chunk of that may be coming out here real soon as well.
Okay. What else have we got to cover at the launch site? Have we covered everything? The crane's back up again, I noticed, in some of the live streams. So I guess we expect the crane to wander on over here and pull down some more vertical tanks.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be over there. It lowered its hook this morning as well. I'm curious to see if some people were thinking maybe it was moving some of the tower legs into place for the base, but The fact that they offloaded that with some of the smaller cranes, I don't know if they necessarily need that, and it doesn't seem quite located right for that movement anyways.
It's a bit of an overkill for a little tiny bit of steel, really, but yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, you may take a look. I think an image of the full tower may be sitting for you to grab as well, Stephanie. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, certainly some good progress has been made on kind of letting us know what's going to happen there and really start to take all those theories that everyone has in terms of how things are going to sit.
Absolutely. I've got a new image coming through. Hang on. There it is. So, except for the tank farm bit, which we know is not going to happen now, otherwise, that's pretty good. And that's a nice little Photoshop job there. Pretty sure the RGV team did this one. Well, that's how I actually imagined it myself, like that. But they told us that that's not going to be the case.
Yeah, I think this really. I think without having a specific knowledge that they were going to share the tank farm, I think this image really does show what was most likely to happen, just based off of how the site was laid out and what other elements that were going to eventually need to be brought in.
I think there was a tiny bit of confusion about when the ship landed. It was dark, because it was dark in Australia when it landed over this side of the world. It did go like nearly halfway around the globe. Okay, what else on the build side? I mean, the launch side. We covered everything. Lawrence, any questions and donations, please, for the launch site?
Yeah, I actually have two questions from Crane Man. The first one: at what spot will the tower compared to the OLM? It seemed the chopsticks were directly above the OLM during the simulated booster return.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I know some of the animations in his all hands meeting kind of did suggest that the landing might happen more over the launch ring than what I think most of us thought. I think most of us thought it would land almost as how it's sitting now. I think with some of the revelations of potential deluge triggering at that point, it would make sense maybe that it does need to happen over the top if they want to have a little bit of deluge on the plate to counteract the Raptors in the final stages before they shut down.
Agreed.
And the second question is, how many bullet tanks are they adding to the tank farm? Broken concrete suggests more than 2.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I agree. I think when we look at this angle, I don't think it's more than 2. I think 2 is probably the right answer.
Unless they keep going, but they haven't actually marked anything out or anything.
Yeah, I think the challenge too, if they go much more than 2 more tanks, they're going to have an entrance issue coming in through D2. So I don't think that it'll be more than 2 unless they have a plan to relocate the entrance to get vehicles into the launch site.
I'd agree. I have one last question. What does everyone think about landing ship on chopsticks?
Well, I think it's going to be a while. would be the first part of that. I think they've got a lot of challenges to overcome on that in terms of how they're actually going to capture it. I think it's going to be very possible. I think just like the booster, it's going to be possible to get it in position to catch. Whether an entirely new system of pins similar to a booster that are retractable or something, per my personal opinion, I don't think they can catch it in the sockets like they lift it for stacking operations.
And Sharpie had actually asked, and I guess this is more related to the launch, what, with the forward flaps moving on ship version 2s, what other protection might they need?
I think one of the keys on there is, and we may never find out exactly, is whether the tiles survived the heating well in the first place. My suspicion might be that they didn't fare as well, whether it be because of the attachment methods. That I think the hot gas seals may need to be upgraded for sure, but I think some of the damage we saw was just the tiles not handling things. Perhaps when they get the tiles to stay on a little bit better, the plasma won't get in, so we won't see the extreme damage we saw. Perhaps.
Okay, any more questions there, Lawrence?
We should be good to move on.
All right, so just a late breaking news here from Benedict. Sorry, Lawrence, go ahead.
We just got one that came in at the last minute from Sejji, I believe. And will the OLM2 be different and designed for Block 2, or will Block 2 booster have same OLM design as Block 1?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to probably wait and see a little more evidence. My personal thought is that I don't know that the Raptor QDs and the aft surface of a Block 2 and 3 booster, I don't expect them to change drastically where they wouldn't work. I could be very wrong on that, to be honest, but I feel like the way that the aft clamping surface is probably not going to change, and then maybe some QD issues if they change how Raptor 3s, perhaps how engine chill is recovered or any of that kind of stuff. So I think there could be some changes. I don't know how drastic they'll be personally, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of differences. What do you think, Stephanie?
Yeah, I agree. Now, just going to jump in here. We've got some late breaking renders here from Benedict, hot off the press of this, what BJ was just explaining.
Yeah, so this is obviously the face. If we were standing on the OLM looking forward here, that front beam that is the one that we saw in the flyovers, and then the solid panels around the backside is kind of where the openings are. You can kind of see it. I'm not sure if we have a render of the reverse angle just yet or not. Yeah, so here we go. So kind of how those T-shaped pieces and then the header that we saw in the truck at the tank farm kind of make up these openings so that you can still get in. Obviously, things will have to be able to get into the elevators that'll be in there and things like that. So the back looks like it's a little bit more open, especially since we know that there's going to be a secondary outer wall, similar to how the 39A tower base looks, just in metal instead of concrete.
Yeah, there's what do you call them? Embeds out here as well as under there.
But yeah, those modelings are great, especially since we've only seen some of those pieces arrive here very recently.
Agreed. So I got one more question from Ship 25. Do you think they will increase the deluge farm size on Tower 2 to decrease refill time?
I think from my understanding that there's actually quite a bit of extra water capacity in the current tank farm from what they actually use during a launch. I don't remember the exact numbers on that, but I feel like they've got margins, so perhaps the next one won't need to be drastically larger. Um, but if the fact that they used a lot of tanks from like the 39A farm initially, I think the new farm will look a little different in terms of purpose built instead of using a mixture of new and old parts that they had sitting around from the BFR days.
Agreed.
Okay, and thanks, Jeff, for pointing that out to me. I didn't actually see Benedict's DM. Okay, very good. That's awesome. Awesome renders there, Benedict. Well done. Okay. Now, have we finished with the launch site?
We're all clear here.
Okay, let's jump over to Massey's then. I've been taught how to say Massey's recently. It's like Massey Ferguson. I keep saying Macy's. So let's go to Massey's. Named after Massey Ferguson. No, probably not. Now, one thing I noticed in this photo is from the static fire, there was no bushfire, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, it seemed like most of the steam that we saw coming out in the exhaust from that the test that we saw, the trench did definitely seem to launch most of that upward, just as it should, and keep it away from all the vegetation. I mean, even some of those trees that are close to it, one of them we kind of had some browning to it, but I'm not even sure that it was necessarily a result of the testing.
Yeah, this fella here. So that padhole looks fine. That whole static fire area seems to have survived quite well. There's not even any charring or anything. That looks really quite good. Interesting, the Raptor truck here, but that may be just to get up there and check a few things.
Yeah, we haven't really seen any evidence that any other work is going on over there. I think there's been some observations that suggest perhaps there's some movements in the near future for Ship 26, and there's some different pieces of evidence in some of our pictures, but we'll have to wait and see for the next closure that's been posted to see if it's regarding Ship 26 or another vehicle.
Absolutely. So I think over the back here, there's some more concrete. Yeah, I've nearly finished this area of concrete over here. So this whole side of Massey's is pretty well concreted. So they're waiting for the very last to do this bit, which I've always said all the way along. I would have thought that would have been the first bit of concrete. So it's just this side to finishing concrete now. And Massey's is pretty well all concreted out, which is really nice to see. Okay, moving on to through show and tell. Last week, one of our valued members, Jake, worked out that this booster cap was going up here, and they're going to do a lift point test with this booster cap, and they modified it a fraction. You can just see it on the other side. They added this extra frame, and you can just see an actuator in there. BJ pointed out, and you think that's for side load.
Yeah, so in the last couple of weeks, we've seen these two pieces that are hanging down off the cap. We saw them behind the building and next to the nose cone jail last week in particular, and we saw them this week get lifted up and attached to the bottom, and then obviously we had this appendage. I think some of the initial thoughts was that this little piece that was added would actually do the lifting test on the lift points themselves. But yeah, some of the newer developments suggest that maybe it's a secondary lateral load on the pin while the other devices do the actual simulated landing, simulate the forces of a ship or a booster actually hanging down on those points.
So these are the actuators that are going to do the vertical. Now, I thought this had... What were these again? You explained it to me before.
Yeah, I mean, we initially thought maybe that was actually part of the test device. While they were lifting them, we discovered that those C-shaped pieces were just for hooking the crane up to them to lift them. The way that they bolt up underneath the cap of the test rig, so they needed to be able to lift it right down the center of gravity, center of mass of that unit. So they needed that cantilever out and back in so that they could make sure that it's hanging nice and straight to be able to bolt it up easily. And that's really the only reason for that particular piece. It seemed to have a bigger role initially, but it's just a secondary piece of hardware.
And they're actually bolted up there, as far as I know, aren't actually bolted in this sort of area. Still not sure what these bits are, but they may have something to do with the RAM.
Yeah, I think it's just some strengthening gussets and things like that. Since that RAM will be pulling that in tension, which is the interesting part that I thought about, the fact that they bolted it, and there's probably about a dozen bolts on each side, so 20, 24 bolts, something like that they're going to be relying completely on those bolt surfaces unless they come back and do some kind of welding to actually hold that joint for the force.
That poses an interesting question. What stops and which way they're pulling? They're going to push up.
Yeah, they're pushing up on the ram, which will squeeze. So essentially, they're going to be pulling the ring down onto the top of the booster, which is why we saw those extra structures added to the ring to hold it.
Yeah, those sort of landing pads here. And they'll have it pressurized with this line here to simulate flight conditions. And this, we think, is to test for the upcoming landing that Elon seems very keen on for Flight 5. He even suggested, I think to Tim Dodd, was it, or someone that it might have just been on X, that he's planning to do a catch on Flight 5. I'm wondering if his staff is trying to talk him out of it or what's going to happen there.
Yeah, that landing video seems to suggest that it landed really close to its right where it needed to be. So I think it's going to be in the cards. I think for Flight 5 that they really do bring it back, or at least try to bring it back. So they'll want to get this test done, and yeah, Elon's been very vocal, I think, in terms of wanting to do that if the Flight 4 landing went as planned, and it seemed to have done so.
Someone in chat, Flan, saying that maybe he said that to Ellie. So Ellie got to have a bit of an interview with, I bet you she fangirled right out. She got to have a little interview with Elon as well. Good on her. And Tim. That was awesome. Okay, the test rig here. So it's obviously that's not going in this test rig. But this test rig, the second layer, we've already saw railings go. On the third stage in here, it's got some railings starting. Now, I couldn't get close to Massey's on this flight. There was something going on with TFRs and vision or whatever, so we only got a couple of long shots from Massey's this week, unfortunately. But even still, enough information to have a look around and see what's going on and look at the actual development without going into too much detail.
Yeah, we weren't really able to see much on the test rig development here. I mean, we did see on the top level of the platform that's to the side of it there, we've got some kind of generator unit or something, pump unit, that blue casing that was on the second level. I'm not quite sure what that's for, if that's something temporary for construction or if it's part of the final assemblies.
It's sitting on top, yeah. It looks kind of temporary, doesn't it?
Yeah, the only thing I could think of it maybe actually being there is that we did see that little railing, the kick plate that surrounds that. So if there's a diesel generator or something in there, that would contain any diesel spill that might happen. So perhaps it is something for the final structures.
On a clearer day, we'll get a photo in like this. It'd be nice to get a look in under here as well. It kind of looks like some more plumbing's going on in there. I'm not sure whether we're looking through there or whether this is actually on the shelf in there, but it looks like something's going on in there.
Yeah, we've definitely seen that a number of lines have gone over there from the tank farm. So this angle definitely on a better day might have really shown what kind of equipment is in there.
Okay, very good. Agreed.
Yeah,
Go on.
Yeah, I think the only other thing to really comment here is that in the last 2 days, the crane and the CFA rig there for the tank expansion has now been removed. The drill rig was removed from the crane yesterday, and the crane was laid down today. And it looked like some of the small cranes around it were probably disassembling it this morning. So it seems like that work is starting to wrap up.
Awesome. Ready for some footings. What do you call those things? Bases. At least a post anyway. And then hopefully some tanks arriving.
Yeah, and then the only other thing I kind of I briefly touched on it when we were talking about Ship 26 over there. In this view, you can actually see it. There's a ship transport stand there right behind the cell phone tower that has been brought out to Massey's, and then also over by the booster cryo station. Between the two cryo stations, there's a SBMT with a bunch of counterweights hidden in the background. And we've also seen throughout the week that one of the ship squids has been taken to Massey's. So there's a lot of speculation that perhaps with Mega Bay 2 still being worked on inside, that Ship 26 may be coming off of the static fire stand with a crane instead of being transported back to the build site on the static fire stand.
So this won't fit in high bay to get off the stand, will it? It has to go into Mega Bay 2.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's where if that's indeed what's going to be happening, I think that's the reason why that may be happening.
And this crane's quite capable of doing that.
Yeah, that's my understanding. I believe the 1600 an LR 1600 has done some previous ship work back when I think it was Tankzilla crane. I think was a 1600-2. So.
Agreed. It was the blue and white crane that was used for everything from the SN series to stacking BN1.
All right, very good. So that pretty well wraps up Macy's. Was there no more questions or donations?
Yeah, I have a question from Detroit Mission Control. Do you think SpaceX will build a permanent crane?
For this test rig, that's a good question. We're speculating whether they're going to do that or bring the white one from the launch site down here. Not sure.
Yeah, I feel like the launch site at some point probably is not going to be in need of the LR 11,000 that we have there. So I feel like that would be my biggest speculation, is that once things are done there, that crane will find its way to Massey's for work on this test structure, because they're going to need a fairly large crane for that.
It's going to be quite tall when it's finished. It should be about, we got another layer, it's almost where the cap's going to end up being, up around that height, somewhere up here by the time it's finished. So there's still parts, maybe even a new part, where are they, for the next ring again. So we've got 1, 2, the third one in the background, and there's parts for the fourth ring over here. There's a curved section we saw last week.
Yep, right there between the two white pickups is the one curve piece we saw last week. And then it looks like there's another piece that's just in front of those trucks, kind of where that, just behind, right in front of that white truck on the right, seems to be another one. I think it may be another one of the curved pieces, but it could be something else related.
Yep, great.
All right. I would like to thank Jax for giving it 1 membership.
Thank you, Jax. Okay, we should move on to Sanchez. Sanchez. Okay, we got some nice vertical aerials. We've also got a few of these nice low-angle shots again this week. Let's start over at the GC building. And it seems like some more parts, I guess, have arrived and they're stacking more stuff in here with a forklift and that. Some more stuff getting staged around here. Looks like they're getting ready to go full swing on the tower sections.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of cryo work being done in some other areas throughout Sanchez. I mean, obviously over here at the GSE building, they do a lot of assemblies. I wonder if if the work that's being done in here is gonna be more related to getting things over from the tank farm, if they're gonna do new subcoolers, if it's gonna be some of the other things, manifolds and such, that are part of the GSE as opposed to the tower itself.
Now, that's a good observation because we actually see a lot of that. Oops, wrong picture. A lot of that tower infrastructure getting built down here. So you might have a good point there. So the tower section, GC's all in, the cryo stuff's all in here, plumbing. And yeah, perhaps GC plumbing in here, like this building has been on GC for the launch site and for Massey's in the recent history.
Yeah, it just seems with all of the hardware they've got on the racking in there, a lot of flange pieces, elbows, and other smaller fittings. It seems that it would be that area isn't those bulk long lengths of straight pipe work.
Now going on with the tower, so they're starting to do, I just mentioned, a lot of plumbing here with their Texas tents. So we're seeing this is all stuff to do with the tower. Are they using their new power supplies? It's a bit hard to tell. Well, I can't see any generators around, so there must be.
Yeah, I think that right next to that smaller square tent, I think that is one of the stations of power that's been run throughout this area for easy access to manufacture.
Those actuators are still sitting there. So are they going to be used for Tower 2? I mean, this is Tower 3, technically. We'll call this Launch Pad B.
Yeah, well, I'll have to get into just a common terminology. I know the FAA documents that allowed us to confirm the location of the tower. It's referred to as Starbase Tower 2. Obviously, with the second tower that was built at 39A, and this being the third overall tower, there's everybody getting on the same reference to which one is named what until is going to be the challenge. But I tend to say Tower 2 just because it's the second tower here.
Agreed, especially when we're on the subject of Boca Chica. Okay. Over here, we've got, they seem to have scrapped, we saw some ring sections here, white ring sections here, which we saw in the past building this weird shaped double ring and spider arms, radial arms being built here. And we thought there was some more radiuses for a third one, but they've been moved over to the scrapyard here and they're in a bin over here. So I'm not sure what happened there. And the other lid was moved over here as well.
Yeah, it's rather interesting that they built that. They built that one, and then we saw all those parts for a second one arrive. And for them to just scrap all those pieces is rather interesting.
Just while we're here too, there's a little nose cap been hanging around. It's finally over here in the scrapyard. Another good view of these little tiles here for the... Oh, they're normal sized tiles, aren't they? But how they're going to put tiles in the Mega Bay 2 instead of gluing them on there. So last week we saw a mystery piece of white steel here that's disappeared. Still got no idea what that was. And we've got a new pieces here. I think this is a better photo of them. There's 10 of them. I mean, it's been suggested something OLM-ish related, but I'm not convinced about that. They kind of look wrong for that, so it's a mystery. And there's 10 of these have arrived as well, which is once again a mystery.
Yeah, the real interesting part on this one is that those 10 particular pieces look really similar to the spokes that were on that previous article that we were just talking about, how the curved pieces that went in between the spokes were scrapped. It's very, very similar in terms of its structure. So it'll be interesting to see if we get a chance to see them actually start fabricating this over in the same areas where they build these things.
So here's some of the curved pieces too. Oh, you just actually noticed that. So they look, where are they? Can we see from here? Yeah, they look like the right radius, don't they, for the outer ring?
Yeah, they look like about the right radius. Those ones look like they might be part of an outer ring, and they definitely don't look quite as big. The profile doesn't seem quite as big as the ones that were scrapped. But it would make sense if they've got another circular spoked tooling article that's going to be built that maybe they are part of all that same assembly.
Oh, so there is 10 of them. Okay, yeah, well, that's what that is. Sorry, thanks. I'd say you're correct there that they are part of that. It's 10 of them, and they still need a heap of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So another, maybe they're doubled up there even.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to tell what they're going to go from there, but we have to try and keep track of how many spokes are on all these tooling items because we've seen so many different, with some with 6, some with 8, some 10. They're trying to keep them all straight is interesting.
Agreed.
This week, I think it might have been, this week, the concrete of this area where these pipes popped up, which came from all the way around, we think, from the commodities farm. And yeah, the commodities farm's getting more and more a bit of mystery what's going on here, whether it's just that pipe plumbing that went around, whether it's just water or whether it was commodities as well. So they've popped up here and they've got concrete laid over the top of it now. And booster force still hanging in there. The car park and garage, not a lot of change. We saw them last week. We saw, I know Zach pointing out these guardrails in here because there's a drop there. I think on this side it's just for looks because there's no drop across there, but there is a drop down to the ramp. And that'll be the same on every layer through here, on every level through here. There'll be that little bit of railing in between these verticals.
Yeah, it seems like they've wrapped up most of that the welding work on joining all the concrete segments up there. Because I know last week we saw there was still a lot of welders and cable running around there. So it seems like they're wrapping that up. It looks like they still haven't poured the concrete there in a couple of those expansion joints. So it's still got a little bit to go yet, but making really good progress to getting this wrapped up.
So this was supposed to be finished by the end of last month, wasn't it?
Yeah, the licensing documents said the May 31st was the completion date.
Well, they kind of did the main work by then, I guess. Okay, what have we missed at Sanchez? I think we've got it.
Yeah, I think that covered it. Not a whole lot of progress, just a little bit here and there.
There's going to be a lot of work over the next weeks. We'll see a lot of this plumbing going into the tower sections, and so tower sections 4 and 5 are on their way. So we'll see them coming in soon, which will be good to see. Did you say they've hooked up the ship to the barge and it should be on its way sometime even today or tomorrow? Sorry.
Yeah, just before we went live, the Gator cams actually from Lob Padre actually showed the bar or the tug that is pulling it to Brownsville was already hooked up, and they were leaving Port Canaveral this morning. So everything seems to, I think about 2 weeks, I think is about the time it took the previous barge to get here. So a couple weeks, and we should start seeing these new tower segments and the chopsticks arrive.
There's the transport stand for ship 29. These flaps, they're cowering like, oh no, don't make me do it. Can't believe that flap did such a good job in its absolute destruction. All right, we'll go on to the build site then in that case. Thank you. Lawrence, any questions? Sorry.
No, we're good to move on from here.
Okay, thank you. Build site. There it is. Okay, we still have a hole in the ground. From last week, they've changed the shape of these. These are modular. They can change this bar. They can change to shorter bars. And last week we saw shorter bars in here, just sitting nearby. So last week was a big. Well, now there's only thinner ones. So a bit of drainage work we think there.
Yeah, it seems to be just a continuing. They had those drainage lines that go from the front of the site to the back that cut through to the right side of Mega Bay 2 in this angle. And then when they expanded the Star Factory to butt right up against Mega Bay 2, they rerouted it around the left side of Mega Bay 2 now. So they've been doing a lot of excavation work along that path in the last few weeks. So it'll be nice when they finally finish that off and we can start seeing some more work back in Mega Bay 2, because it seems like some groundwork and some other internal work is preventing vehicles from being worked on in Mega Bay 2 right now.
Yeah, because we've kind of expected to see maybe Ship 31 come back in here to get repaired and what have you. But yeah, that looks like as well. Sorry, back on Sanchez. Now, I believe some more Booster 15 parts have arrived in the ring yard, but we can't see them in this after the flyover.
Yeah, overnight, the third section of the LOX tank for Booster 15 arrived and is staged in front. I think the main interesting part on there is that there appears to be a new vent kind of in the middle of that segment that hasn't been seen on any of the previous boosters.
Looks like you've got the ring watchers bug.
A little bit.
Careful.
So the first two segments were taken aside, and we're ready to continue forward movement on that. It seems they're not ready to slow down at all.
No. Okay. There's the raceway jig is out of high base, so that either means they've finished with it on Ship 31 to replace the raceway, or they're not going to do it at all. I'm pretty sure they are working on 31, and 31 should fly. Now, Ship 30 to fly, it's had an engine change, so we think it's going to need at least a spin prime. Shouldn't need a static fire, because 28 had an engine change and only did a spin prime on it. Now, I guess that means it has to go to Massey's to do a spin prime on that flame trench.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what we have. There's been actually a lot of development in the high bay over the last couple of days. Obviously, we saw before the flyover that they had removed the one engine from Ship 30. The Raptor, the RVAC that was removed, has since been replaced, and Ship 30 has been moved back onto the turntable again. Actually, the latest development today is that Ship 31 has now been moved to the doorway and is currently actually has the 2-point lifter hooked up to it. I'll have to wait and see what's going to happen there, but I'm wondering if 31 is actually ready to go back out to Massey's for a reattempt on its cryo tests. I think the main eyes is on the ship thrust simulator right now to see if it starts making its way over to the high bay to confirm that or not.
So there's actually a possibility we'll see Ship 31 on a cryo station and Ship 30 on the flame trench doing a spin prime over the next week or so.
It could be. It could very well be possible. There's a lot of the activity over there suggests it's possible.
And it sort of seems like that's the way they're going with Macy's over there, to do multiple tests on multiple vehicles over there, which is awesome. As the cadence increases, they're going to need to increase testing, obviously. So just while we're here, we see they put a door in, and Look at that. They made it nice and fancy and coloured the bottom nice and white and the top nice and grey. Awesome.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how quickly we start seeing, and if we start seeing some activity through the windows of the Star Factory now that they've got the door on there, and presumably that whole taller two segments of the factory are closed into the environment a little bit. So hopefully we can maybe start seeing that they're into production relatively soon in there.
So we noticed, I think, in past flyovers, we might just be able to see. Can we see through the door? No. This one. Oh, can we see in through those doors? There was concrete missing in this section, or there was more missing in this section. So I'm not sure whether it's actually concreted now or not.
Yeah, I think the part that we're seeing, there was one view of it. It's between the two bigger doors that are on the side there. It's what we've seen over the last months as they've been building. It's one segment that was left out. I have a suspicion that that area may be a utilities area, and that perhaps there's some underground utility work that kind of comes together there, and that's why they haven't poured that little pad yet.
Yeah, that sounds about right. A bit more roof work going on. Roof. I joke there because sometimes the American accent I hear roof instead of roof. It's all good. I like teasing the Americans a little bit. Okay, this building's going ahead. It's something in here is going to need a lot of cooling. We've got some cooling fluid tanks and some coolers, chillers, and its own transformer, and possibly more transformers. So whatever's happening in this area is going to use a lot of electricity, a lot of power, and it's going to need a lot of cooling. There's something fairly major in here. I still have no idea what. Any ideas?
Yeah, I mean, we feel like we didn't really get any great images of some of the infrastructure. It did appear like there was maybe some pumping units that were in there before they closed it in. But the developments, they were able to get it closed in without us really seeing a lot of the infrastructure inside there. So it seems like it could just be a pumping station of some sort, or it could be more elaborate than that. But I'm not sure that I have any firm thoughts on it.
We can just see here the plumbing we see coming from the commodities farm, or the fire area is here now, all installed actually into the factory in this area. Now in behind here there is a plant room in here. We saw when this building was getting built. Back in here there's a plant room for electrical stuff. So I guess it's going in there and I think we might have even seen major gas pipes in there, now remembering as well. So perhaps this is part of the commodities, and maybe either as an addition or actually as a replacement for this tank farm.
Yeah, I think both of those are big possibilities. But yeah, there's definitely some utility services that are in that corner. So it makes sense that they would have brought some of the newer integrated facilities into there.
I concreted this little part. I was thinking we saw formwork last week, and this little water valve there. Should be seeing interesting stuff coming here from time to time on this unloading bay here. That's interesting. That's sucking. Oh, that's to do with this drilling, I guess. That water.
Yeah, that I would assume that's part of the directional boring. Yeah.
Which is coming from over. We think these pipes is coming from over this area, and these pipes will get drawn back through that hole. It seems to be taking a few weeks to do that, which is strange.
Yeah, that drill rig's been there at least since the last flyover, and I think even the flyover prior to that. They've been definitely spending a lot of time working through that.
Little product placement there. They do use Walmart parts, you see. These rockets are built out of Walmart parts. Okay, more work's going on this road here. They'll get that finished soon enough. Okay, I think that covers the factory pretty well. We'll go on to the office building. Just where on this photo we can see that they've poured concrete on this level as well as this level now.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I don't think that third floor is done from the top view. I believe we can see the corrugation still there. I think it was only that right-hand half of the second floor that has been poured.
Let me try and get a shot. Oh, here we go. Ah, correct. Yep. Okay. Yep. That's correct. Nonetheless, it's coming along nicely. Getting more of this steel laid down. This building's starting to come together a bit where they join. Still, it doesn't look like there's going to be anything in here. I'm not sure whether they're going to put a truss through here and have a roof in here yet or not. It's a bit of a mystery, this area. There's nothing underneath it to support any framework down here like these supports. Oh, there are those, aren't there? So yeah, perhaps we will see.
Yeah, it looks like there's three. I think there's four footings there in the gap. 1, 2, 3 in the open, and then one all the way on the right-hand side next to the building. So I think there's definitely going to be an exterior wall, but some of the other evidence maybe suggests that that's going to be maybe open space all the way up to the roof, or at least more than one level, because there's no structure, it seems, to connect it.
Agreed. Now I'll try and find those footings. I'll get there. Wait. There we go. So a little bit of work going on here. Still have. Well, we've kind of figured out that line's going to meet through there, but sort of no idea what's going to happen in this area still. Did I hear an update about this block, BJ?
Yeah, as we kind of expected, the court system was going to be the court system, but the court case that was due to have jury trial here on June 10th has been delayed. The documents that I've been able to find suggest that a continuous motion for continuance was granted. Right now, if I can find the document, it looks like the trial's been pushed back to August 5th now. So we've got another couple months to wait to see what's going to happen with that little parcel that's getting really locked in.
Such a battle over such a small little bit of dirt. Amazing, to be honest. Over a little bit of money. So, just interestingly, too, these parts we've been wondering what they are. So we move from over here. They're starting to get spread out in different areas. So we may well see what they are soon in some of the ground shots.
Yeah, I've been wondering. I've noticed those for quite a few weeks now, and it seems like I've never located them inside of any of the assemblies. So they've been a very confusing bit of steel work for me.
Okay, let's have a quick look. So that pretty well wraps up the office building. So over here, there's still some development. I'll find a better photo. So I was trying to find the rec area, but there's just been some more development.
Yeah, it seems like they're just continuing to work on a little bit of that infrastructure that comes over, some power utilities, things like that. I would imagine that we might start seeing some forward movement on the actual building here pretty soon as well.
And over here, the crane yard's not much movement either. That's, I believe there's Grover there. And the spare. Now, is there a new one? Is there three? There's still only two of these, isn't there? These lifting rigs.
Yeah, still only two. The challenge is that they only have the one transport stand for it, so the second one seems to continually get laid down here in the old crane yard that doesn't really have crane parts, but the cranes get parked here every once in a while, so it's still a crane yard.
Okay. Okay, we can drop over to any last questions. Where are we up to? We're pretty well finished the whole tour today. So we'll go into some questions or anything else you want to add, B. Janie or Darth?
I do want to thank a couple of people, both Jim Cavett and Callisti Lee, each gifted a membership. And we do have several questions now.
Fire away.
All right, this came in at the beginning of the show. It's more of a statement, and it's from Kyler Menares. I have a theory that the big open lobby will be similar to the lobby in SpaceX's building in Hawthorne they live streamed from.
Yeah, I think there's some real thought that could be there. I mean, the fact that they have faced the middle of that straight towards the launch site definitely almost makes it feel like they could have a similar thing like that. And that atrium at Hawthorne really does kind of feel like that, and they've tried to maybe replicate some of that in some of the office spaces for sure.
Agreed. And the next question is, do you know what purpose the small black building on the side of the factory has?
I believe they're talking about this little office here.
I believe so as well.
I think it's just an office.
Yeah, I forget if I know it's office space. I don't remember if it's specific office space related to the TPS work that is done over next door there in Tent 4. But I feel like when they built that, I remember hearing that was kind of correlated between TPS and it's mostly office space.
All right, next question. Could it be that the factory will get another nose cone hallway structure on the office side, having it angled in parallel with the new office building, making the factory more symmetrical?
So I'm just going to have a giggle there. What? SpaceX symmetrical? Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what develops in there. I mean, the inner level of that inner row of footings hasn't expanded more than 2, so we don't really know what the footprint of that expansion is going to look like. And I think long term, the waiting on that plot of land is kind of going to be part of how that all comes together. But I would doubt that it's going to have a symmetry or anything like that to the other side.
It would be nice. It would be nice. Yeah, and agreed. Yep.
All right, next question. Did Elon confirm that Star Factory will be fully operational this summer?
I don't remember it specifically this summer. I do believe during the stream, the commentators did suggest that they wanted parts of it at least to be operational by the summer. I would guess that realistically, end of year for the entire factory is probably more realistic.
Agreed. I believe even Kathy Luter said that by the end of the year, it should be fully operational.
Well, just on that thing about fully operational, remember this is a research and development factory. I don't believe this will ever be, in quotes, fully operational. It will produce ships and boosters, but I think also it'll be under sort of a constant state of development as well. And they may pull a whole line off and redo a whole line. So I'm not sure about the, in quotes, fully operational part. But yes, operational to build ships and boosters. I mean, we already believe it's partially operational on the old section, obviously, with the press pit and everything. And this section here, we have seen articles in here through these doors. We've seen barrel sections in here. So we know this area right up to this bit of the factory is operational. And we've seen equipment in this part of the factory down here, not part of the outside. Where is it? The highest part. Sorry, we have seen.
Yeah, you were in there. It's hard to see where that last extension was, but yeah, everywhere where you were just highlighting there, even to the right, even farther to the left, essentially that whole area. Yep, because we right about where that smaller, right where your hand, right there to your right, just a little bit. That's about where we saw the nose cone that was in the air during the live stream. We saw some of those inside views that stacked robot system and all that stuff was just to the right of your hand in that tallest segment.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously, there's nothing in here yet, but I mean, it shouldn't take much time. We have seen robots, I believe, and we've seen bridge cranes obviously getting put in here. So yeah, I'm pretty sure. Like at the moment, it's what would you say, 2/3 half operational, 2/3, 1/3 operational, sort of half operational, and still it's sort of this area really, and these high sections still to have something happen in them. And we'll see stuff in here soon enough through these windows, hopefully, like you said earlier.
But yeah, third. I would go with it. Agree with you there that I think they're probably about a third of the space they're utilizing right now, and I think these larger spaces will come on board pretty quick now that the bridge cranes are in a lot, and then they can start bringing in the tooling that those sections will use.
Agreed. And we just got a $20 PayPal donation from Jeffrey Leclerc saying, awesome content. Any estimates on how many cars can fit in the new garage?
I remember hearing a number, and for the life of me, I can't remember what it was. 600 comes to mind, but I think that is a little high, but that may be accurate.
Yeah, I think Villa Kids said something like 600-700 car parks. Yeah, they park on the ramp as well here on this type of building, and all around the corner here, and all the way along here. So yeah, about 700, I think, by memory. Which, agreed, it does sound like a lot of cars, but I mean, it is quite tall. Thanks, Lawrence.
All right, next one from P. Devas. Do you think they're going to integrate the bakery into the factory at some point, perhaps in the missing quarter near the offices?
Yeah, I could really see them integrating it at some point. The only thing I can't necessarily figure out where they would put it. I would imagine that they'd probably keep it in that corner. Similar, but of course that is all being used for other things. Of course, as they develop the other parts of the factory, maybe they move some stuff that was in the original phase, move it over and have room over there. Maybe they put it all the way across the site. I think they probably will integrate it, but I'm not sure where.
Agreed.
Agreed. And Detroit Mission Control had a similar question. Is the tile bakery a fire risk? And do you think they will ever build a permanent building for it?
Yeah, I mean, I think like we just said, I don't know that they would build anything. I would imagine they just move it inside what's already the factory. I mean, I don't know that it would necessarily be a fire hazard. I mean, they are building it inside of a canvas covered tent right now, so I don't know how much fire mitigation is in there that the factory wouldn't be far superior at.
Agreed. Okay, so last question. This comes from um, Skeleton Mandan. Thanks for all the great coverage, flyovers, and analysis. What do you all now think about how many more V1 ships will fly and when? Do you still think there will be a break after the next one?
Well, I think they're going to fly all three of them. I think they'll fly all the way through 32. I don't know how much of that is so much about ship data. I think working on getting the booster landings and catches nailed, I think, is going to be the main driving force for why they will fly all 3 stacks of V1 ships. Especially since we expect that at least the initial V2 ships will probably fly on version 1 boosters. So I think there's a lot of data that can carry over for that. I think they'll probably fly every couple months. I'm not sure that they'll get that cadence anything under 6 to 8 weeks, maybe. And then I think there's going to be a little bit of a break, I think, before the V2s, unless we start seeing some legitimate V2 ship hardware come on board. Obviously, with Booster 15 starting to stack, that would be paired up with the first V2 ship that comes out. So there's movement forward to that, but I think there's time will tell what kind of gap we'll have there before version 2 flights start happening.
I've got a question there. Do we think version 2 ships will launch from orbital pad A? I'm thinking that they won't. I'm thinking we won't see version 2 ships until orbital pad B is operational, given that they're going to start trying to do this catching on Tower 1. So if something should go wrong on the landing and there's some substantial damage to the tower, that may wrap up version 1 flights at that point, and then they may just switch straight to version 2 at that stage. This is a wild speculation, by the way. And at that point, wait till tower launch pad B is operational to launch version 2. Be interested. I don't even know whether version 2 ships will fit orbital pad A. I guess they may.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with some of that. I think the fact that the first version 2 ships are probably going to fly on version 1 boosters. There's no reason that they wouldn't be compatible with Pad A. But totally, if any of the first attempts to catch a booster on the tower turns into some kind of mishap of catching that damages infrastructure, that could really set things back. So I think there's definitely some possibility that I think what I said originally would be probably in an ideal world of flight tests, but any number of things could happen that could really change that dramatically because booster catching's never been seen before.
Agreed. And I have one last donation here from Detroit Mission Control, $4.99. Thanks to the entire team of RGV. Great job as always.
Thanks, Detroit. Appreciate it. Elon just posted a minute ago, booster landing was on target. Ship landing was several kilometres off due to flap damage, but both were soft landings. Awesome news. Okay, I think we're about done. Any more comments from BJ? Or?
No, I think that covers everything. I think with the developments around the site were somewhat limited this week, just because all of the activity for flight and all that stuff. We see that around the flight times that we still see lots of progress, but it definitely kind of shifts towards all those flight preparations.
And Lawrence, Lawrence, we might get you to sign up. Any last comments and then sign up, please?
I'm looking forward to the future now in the next couple of months to see how everything progresses. And we're clear here. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in today.
BJ can sign off.
Yeah, thanks for everyone for joining in for this episode. Looking at some things around the sites and getting a view of what happened and our recap and what we thought of it. It was great that Elon gave us that last little tidbit. I feel like that was on board with what I had, but the soft landing of Ship 29, I think, was in question by some on how soft it was. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us for this episode. Look forward to coming back and sharing future flyover images with you guys.
All right, cool. That's a wrap. So I just want to thank there's a team behind this productions. It's never just us at the front here. So at Emlyn on the producing on the knobs and dials, doing that. We've got Astro Jen, big shout out for helping with scheduling and getting everybody rounded up. We're a bit like rounding up cats some days. And with that, how's it go? Most engines cut off, separation confirmed. Loved you, bye.